Welcome to Point of View. I'm Pastor Josh Barnes. This is the show where we're unashamed to look at political, social, cultural, and even theological issues from a biblical worldview because Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead. And you can't be right about issues if you disagree with Jesus. And he proves he knew what he's talking about when he rose from the dead. So we're doing what we normally do on Fridays is our Point of View Spotlight episode, although we've done two this week, actually. But this is where we have we interview someone else who also is working to help people have a biblical worldview, and we share that interview with you. So today have a really interesting guy. He's not an American. You know, a lot of what we do is American politics, but he certainly has a lot to say about American politics. But he's actually from New Zealand. This is Trevor Loudon. He got riled up in New Zealand years ago about the Communist Party trying to take over there. And then he started to realize that all around the world, that really communism has and Marxism and socialism has crept sort of secretly onto the world stage and controls the major countries of the world except for the United States. And then he did more diving and more digging, and he's looking into how socialism, Marxism, these things have crept even into the United States. And some of the things that he says are quite shocking, and I certainly couldn't say on my own with my amount of experience and my research, but he's researched this. He's done a lot of work in this area, so I'll let him share that with you when I play the interview in just a second. I want you to notice, though, that one of the key things he's going to say here is that there are entities from Russia, China, and even North Korea, from all of these communist countries, socialist countries, that have bought and paid for many of our leaders in Washington, D.C. And we're not just talking about the executive branch of the president. Obviously, there's people admit that he's probably a puppet and all this type of thing. We're talking about more than that. We're talking about legislators all the way down. This is surprising, maybe, but interesting to see that it's not just a theory that somebody's come up with. He's done research. He's tied these organizations and these things together. And also, I want you to wait till the end, because at the end, he's going to talk about his conclusion and what Americans can do about it. Should we wash our hands and say, look, the rapture is coming, Jesus is coming back, I'm not worried about it? Or should we fight and stand as long as we can and try to preserve freedom in America? We're going to have a little discussion about that at the end. This is our Spotlight episode for today. Here we go. Here is the interview. Guys, I'm joined now by Trevor Loudon, who is just an amazing guy. He's done a lot of research really about a topic that I want to jump into a lot today, and that is socialism, Marxism, and these agendas that are really creeping into America. He was part of the film, you remember when we had Pastor Kerry Gordon on. He was part of the film Enemies Within the Church. As a matter of fact, he did a lot of the research for that. Here is Mr. Trevor Loudon. Trevor, thank you so much for joining us on Point of View today.
Oh, look, thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, it's so good to have you. This is something that we discuss all the time. I feel like on this show, and with my friends and family at my church, this is just always coming up because it's so obvious now. It's so obvious that there is an agenda going on, that there's Marxism that's it's not really even creeping in. It's not like it's hidden anymore. It's pretty out in the open. It's obvious. What is the end goal? What is going on here? What's some of the key points that you found in your research?
Well, it depends how far you want to take it, but we are in a Marxist revolution right now.
Yeah.
That's what we're in. The Democratic Party now is controlled by Marxists. They've also infiltrated the Republican Party to some degree, which operates sometimes as a controlled opposition rather than real opposition, with the exception of some politicians. We're in a revolution. The goal is to bring the United States to its knees and institute a one-party Soviet state worldwide. Some people call it globalism, but I think it'll be much harsher than that. It'll be worldwide socialism, communism. And America is the last stand. And the churches, being the backbone of America, are a huge target for the left.
Yeah, well, there's no question that this has become more and more about targeting churches and biblical Christianity, ideas of just well, even just common sense ideas that are based in the Bible, like children shouldn't be exposed to transgender ideology in kindergarten. These are just things that should be common sense. You shouldn't even need the Bible to tell you that this is wrong, but I mean, obviously, it's based on biblical principles. But what I wanted to get to is sort of what is this when you're looking at it, when you're working right now on the security risks in the United States Senate. This is, I think, the next thing that you're coming out with. And how is it that we've had this Marxism creep into the leadership of our country, where it seems to be all throughout the Senate, it seems to be all throughout the office of the executive branch, the legislative branch, in several places in the judicial branch. I mean, just our leadership is all this way now. And what do they stand to gain from this? Is this all about power for them?
Well, many of them are ideological Marxists. The people in power in this country now, in business and in politics and the media, are the young radicals who marched for the Viet Cong during the 1970s. They supported the Nicaraguan Sandinistas and Fidel Castro in the 80s. They took a little bit of a setback when communism, so-called collapsed in the 90s. But that's over now. They've come back. They've recovered. And so the people running America now in most of our institutions are bona fide Marxists. I say in the United States Congress, there's about 100 members of the House who couldn't pass a security check to drive a school bus, but they're controlling every single major committee in the Congress: armed services, intelligence, education, natural resources. The same situation in the US Senate, the same situation in Biden's cabinet. We are in a Marxist revolution. These 60s, 70s, 80s radicals are now running the left in this country, and they want their revolution before they die. And this is their chance. This is their opportunity.
What do you mean by they couldn't pass a security check to drive a school bus? What are the types of things that are in their ledger that would prevent them from driving a school? What do you mean by that?
Well, many of your congressmen are bona fide affiliates or even members of Marxist organizations like Democratic Socialists of America. Many of them have ties to the Communist Party USA. Many of them, at least 50, have deep ties to Communist Cuba. Some are tied to North Korea, are working in the interests of North Korea. Many of them are involved with China. They're also involved with organizations like the Council for a Livable World, which was set up by a Soviet agent to destroy the United States military. That organization has elected over 200 senators, over 200 US senators, including 40 of the current Democrats, and over 300 Congress members. So I'm talking bona fide Marxist communists,
Wow.
and in some case Islamists, in some case both, running virtually every committee in the United States Congress and the Senate and in Biden's cabinet.
Yeah. We talked about the World Economic Forum here on Point of View several weeks ago. And, that the whole idea of the World Economic Forum is essentially socialist. And those who are connected with that, definitely you can see the connection there. But you're saying that they're not just, part of organizations that are socialist in nature, but you're talking about them actually having ties to North Korea, China, any that have ties like to Russia.
Absolutely. Russians have been involved in American politics for a very long time. But I'll give you an example. Recently, Biden appointed Deb Haaland, second-term congresswoman from New Mexico, as Secretary of the Interior. She controls all of the energy extraction and on public lands and the uranium extraction on Indian lands. She was put in place by Judith LeBlanc of the Communist Party USA, the woman who led the all of the the Native American protests at Standing Rock a few years ago. First thing Biden did when he got into office was cancel the pipeline. Now we need that oil because that oil is the only thing that can stop Russia conquering Ukraine. But we're not going to get that oil because the Communist Party USA, which supports Russia and China, put their supporter as US Secretary of the Interior. And she's
Wow.
keeping every lease shut down as long as she can. Biden himself was a protege of the Council for a Livable World, which was set up by a Soviet spy called Leo Szilard, an actual bona fide Soviet spy, worked in the Manhattan Project. And it was designed to destroy the United States military. And what has Biden done since he's been in office? He basically gave a whole bunch of American material to China and Afghanistan. He is basically uh, gutting the US military right now when Russia and China are getting ready for war. But he's getting rid of every officer he can, every conservative, with his political correctness, with his vaccine mandates. Biden, if Biden was a fully paid up Russian agent here to destroy the United States military and allow Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping to rule the world, what would he be doing differently than he is today? Nothing.
Wow. Wow. Um, I try so hard not to be a conspiracy theorist. I try so hard. But these kind of things make it really hard to deny that, that at least our executive branch and our legislative branch, it appears as well, are really just being controlled. It seems to me, and these are just, I'm going to throw a theory out because I haven't studied it like you have. It seems to me that you've got a bunch of other countries like North Korea, Russia, China, all vying for control of America, and we're not really in control anymore at all. Is that a fair assessment?
No, no, I think this country is now run by Barack Obama, Susan Rice, and Xi Jinping, and to
Wow.
some degree by Vladimir Putin. We got to understand Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran are all military allies. They are all working off the same playbook. This is something most Americans don't want to confront, but that's the reality. It's America versus all of those nations, and basically, what's America got other than a bunch of unreliable allies who will probably turn and run at the first opportunity? See, this is a deep problem. When America's military was strong, your allies would stay with you, your enemies would back off, and your creditors would leave you alone. Well, now that America is losing its military, now that Russia is superior in many aspects to with their nuclear weapons, which are way ahead of America's, and China is so powerful, we've got a situation now. The whole world balance of power is changing, and America's allies are backing off, and the enemies are uniting against us. That includes the southern border. That's a communist program. The president of Mexico is a Marxist, and we've got our creditors ready to pounce on this country when the dollar collapses. So the military is the main thing, and Biden is gutting the military. He wants, in the face of Russian and Chinese aggression, he wants to reduce ship numbers and reduce nuke numbers. He is gutting the officer corps. Obama purged about a Marxist himself, purged about 200 generals and admirals from the military, the good, reliable, patriotic ones, replaced them with Harvard sociology graduates. And now Biden is going through the lower ranks, purging them. Well, what's the consequence of that? The consequence, we're being set up for a war that we could lose. We probably will lose.
Wow. Now you say something that you said that I've heard before, but I think maybe some of the people in the audience, this is a bit of a shock to them, maybe you can provide sort of more
I hope it
details
is.
from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But you mentioned about you said that one of the people controlling America is Barack Obama. In what way is he still active on the scene?
Well, look, he's never left Washington. No other president's done that. He is very actively involved in the social movements. He's very actively involved with Eric Holder on redistricting
Mm,
and making sure that redistricting goes the Democrats' way so that they can hold on to power. So he is very much still the man behind the scenes in the left wing Democrat social movements in this country. And so, yeah, he's still the president, really. Nobody thinks for a minute that Joe Biden is
yeah,
in charge.
yeah,
The man can hardly tie his shoelaces. He was put in for one reason. They needed to stop Bernie Sanders, and he was the only man at the time who could do it.
yeah,
And the goal was to pave the way for Kamala Harris, who was put in by the same communists that gave us Barack Obama and Stacey Abrams in Georgia and Andrew Gillum in Florida. But Harris has proven so disastrous that they're now stuck with a problem. They want to get rid of Joe, but who do they replace him with?
yeah.
So that's at least one thing in our favor right now.
The absolute incompetence of the of the people that they've chosen, or the people that they could get in to represent them. But you're right. I mean, I don't think I haven't talked to anyone in a long time who doesn't think that Joe Biden is some sort of a puppet. He's clearly
Yeah,
not competent enough to be even making decisions on his own. But
yeah,
as you've mentioned, like this is all looming. This is all like there's a lot of darkness on the horizon, and it's
yeah.
dark here. It looks darker down the road. What do you foresee coming in the future? I mean, just we're not talking about Bible prophecy. Of course, Jesus comes and it's all good in the end. But before then, what are some of the things you're seeing coming down the pike that might happen in the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, well, look, this is how I see things. We're heading for a climax. The forces of communism have never gone away, and we've got to understand communism is basically Satanism. It's a manifestation of the Dark Lord on earth.
Mm,
So there's always been this battle between God and Satan on earth for the peoples of the earth and for the politics and the everything that goes on here. Well, that has the 20th century brought communism to power. And some of us thought, well, it went away in the late 20th century. But if you look around the world now, almost all of Latin America is now run by communists, including Mexico. Most of Europe is socialist. Most of Africa is controlled by China.
wow.
Um, the Chinese and the Russians are the main powers in the world right now in many ways. So I see a climactic battle. Do we rise up and stand up and take back America, take back freedom, and go onwards to freedom and prosperity, or do we succumb into 1,000 years of darkness? Now, I just want to say a little bit because I think a lot of Christians have some misunderstandings here. They'll always say God's in charge. Well, we were given free will.
Hmm.
We were given this wonderful planet to apply God's laws and deliver freedom and prosperity for a lot of people. Well, and some people think, well, look, don't worry if it's all going to hell. Don't worry, we're all going to get raptured in September. It's all right. Well, the Christians in Nigeria who are being slaughtered by the Muslims there are not being raptured. The
Yeah.
Christians in Iraq who got absolutely annihilated by ISIS did not get raptured. Are we better than those people in Iraq and Nigeria? Do we deserve a different fate? People have got to actually face up to the reality here. We're in a world revolution which is going to bring untold misery to millions and billions of people if we don't stand up. We're going to be just as responsible for what happens as the German Christians were in 1930s Germany, who could have stopped Hitler but didn't,
Yeah.
who put swastikas in their churches and said it's all going to be all right, don't worry about it. Hitler will run Germany, we'll look after men's souls. Well, that cowardly attitude led to World War II. And that attitude right now is going to lead to World War III if we don't wake up pretty darn quickly. And
Yeah.
I don't, this is our responsibility. We have free will. We have a blueprint. We have the Bible. We have a constitution. We're supposed to live free and prosperous lives until the very end. And nobody knows when that end is going to be. It is not a choice for Christians to be involved in saving their nation. It is a moral Christian imperative.
Hmm.
It is just as much your duty to save your nation as it is to save your family, your church, or your city.
Yeah.
And millions of American Christians have completely forgotten that concept or completely misunderstand that concept.
Wow. I think that's something that every Christian needs to hear. What you just laid out. It's so true. If we're called to love our neighbors, then why should we just let our neighbors fall into communism where it's going to destroy? I mean,
Absolutely.
these are our neighbors, right? Even if it's not about us,
Yeah.
it's about our friends and loved ones and family and neighbors in this
It's
country.
love God and thy neighbor as thyself. It's your duty to work for a free, prosperous, a free society so that everybody may live in freedom and prosperity and make their choices. But
Hmm.
the Old Testament was a national security blueprint. You know, the Israelites, they built walls around their cities. Their national security was a very important thing. And what happened when they didn't build a wall? What was the lesson? You know, well,
Yeah.
we've abandoned Christians have abandoned the leadership of their own nation, and their own nation is falling into chaos. And if America goes down, the whole free world will fall.
Yeah.
So I think if I thought this was purely a material thing, I think we're done. But I know it's not. You know, miracles happen, but miracles happen when Christians show faith and courage. If your faith is deep, your courage will be broad. If you're not willing to fight for your country and fight for what is right, that shows to me a lack of faith.
Yeah. 100% correct. I want to make sure that I want to get this interview out to everyone I can think of, because what you just said is so important, so necessary for Christians, especially Christians in America, to recognize. Here's a man from New Zealand who's telling us, listen, the whole world's going down if we can't try to save America.
Yeah. Look, my country was facing invasion during World War II by the Japanese. My parents were facing slaughter, and it was young Christian boys from America who left their farms in Iowa or Kentucky and put on uniforms and picked up guns and charged German machine guns on the beaches of Normandy and hopped across islands across the Pacific, fighting malaria and the Japanese at great risk to their life. That's what saved my country.
Hmm.
So, you know, faith means practical application and courage in the face of evil. The Bible says so many times we must conquer evil. Well, evil's running rampant on the planet right now. And a lot of Christians think, oh, well, no, it's all in God's hands. Don't worry about it. You know, if we get a tribulation, it's going to mean we're only going to have 2 cars instead of 3. You know,
Yeah.
they don't understand the depth of what we're facing here, positively and negatively. We come through this, we could have a golden age that could last for a long time, but we're risking losing everything right in front of us right now because Christians have abandoned the public sphere for 50 years now.
Wow. Wow. Yep. Yep. We need to lay it at our own feet and fix it, and understand that it's the ones who have the truth and have the understanding of it, and the understanding of Scripture and the Bible. It's our responsibility to go out and tell the others, and to be
Yep.
the banner carriers. That's all the time we have, unfortunately. Trevor Loudon, thank you so much for joining us here on Point of View today.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I hope people will get the movie Enemies Within the Church because this really lays out some of the things I've said today, and we did it for that reason. We want to save Christianity and we want to save America, and they both go hand in hand.
Enemies Within the Church and the whole Enemies Within series by Trevor Loudon. Thank you so much. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll have to have you back on again soon to talk more about it.
Yeah, pleasure. I love discussing these issues. So thanks for the opportunity.
So good. Such a good interview. Really appreciate Mr. Loudon coming on and being a part of the show. One of the things I thought of as he was talking was this verse from Jeremiah 29, because he talked about how we as Christians, we can't just be sort of fatalistic. It's all set in stone. It's all going to go bad. We can't fight for freedom in America, because we are told to love our neighbors. We are told that we are to care and defend for others. And that means that we should care and care about freedom and righteousness in our land. And Jeremiah 29 is a good example of this, because in Jeremiah 29, Jeremiah is prophesying to the people of Israel that they're going to be taken captive into the land of Babylon, and for their lifetimes they won't be coming back to Israel. Even though ultimately they will be coming back to Israel one day, he's saying you're going to be stuck in that city for a long time in Babylon and in other cities, the cities of Babylon. And so he gives them this command from God in Jeremiah 29, verse 7. And seek the peace of the city whither I have caused you to be carried away captives, and pray unto the Lord for it, for in the peace thereof shall ye have peace. So he's saying, even though it's not your ultimate citizenship, while you're in Babylon, seek the peace of Babylon. What he's saying is, pray for right leaders, join up and be part of the army if you need to, help that city be at peace, because this is where you're at for the foreseeable future. And here's the thing, as Christians, our citizenship is in heaven, isn't it? I mean, this is where we're ultimately going. But in the meantime, we should also pay attention to this admonition that Jeremiah gave the Israelites. We need to seek the peace of America. And those things that create peace and liberty and freedom and justice in our land, we should support, stand for, fight for. These are causes worth fighting for, right? We're talking about standing for what is right and not backing down. We're not talking about physical fighting. That's not the heart of the Christian. The heart of the Christian is not, I want to get into a war. The heart of the Christian is to say, I'm going to stand and I'm going to fight. I mean, these are causes that are worth standing for. And we need to be the ones to stand. If Christians don't stand for truth, who will? I mean, we are the ones who have the biblical worldview. That's what this show is all about how we need to be calling people to the biblical worldview. But who's going to do that if it's not Christians, right? Everyone else who's not a Christian, who doesn't have a biblical worldview, they're looking at the world with the wrong lens, and they're coming to the wrong conclusions. We need to be the ones calling people to the truth and to righteousness and to justice in our country. And let's do that. Let's do everything we can for that. That's all the time we have for today, guys. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Point of View.